All right, here we are just outside of 6 weeks from the start of the 2026 legislative session, and the task force created at the end of last session, that would be Idaho DOGE task force, they met for the final time today. The goal was to come up with a final recommendation for what lawmakers might want to consider when it comes to cutting or combining agencies, in order to save money and generally make government more efficient. That list is now down to 13. These are ideas identified as low-hanging fruit. Joe Parrish shares that final list and the impact the exercise of audits has had on these agencies.
The DOGE task force will come to order.
Decision day for the DOGE task force, tasked with improving government efficiencies.
We'll dive into these consolidation of proposals 1 through 10.
The idea is to see where government can cut spending while also running operations better. Staff cuts, redundancies, and unneeded functions that could be served by other agencies, boards, or commissions. A final list of 10, for now, range from merging the Bingo-Raffle Advisory Board with the Lottery Commission to eliminating the Honey Commission. An illustration of the work by DOGE was shown in a conversation about moving the STEM Action Center to the Workforce Development Council. Questions about effectiveness.
I appreciate the $300,000 reduction in the reduction in 2 full-time employees. And engagement is great, but I think we really should be able or should need to see tangible results. Do we have more Idaho students that are going into science and engineering to support our tech industry in Idaho? And if we don't, then I guess I question the $6 million that we're spending on it.
Co-chair Senator Todd Lakey touched on efforts the center has already taken to self-evaluate their processes. Wendy Sechrist, executive director of the Idaho Workforce Development Council, describes the process.
This is not an easy process. Starting with the stakeholder engagement was critical. Listening to parties, and we listened to both stakeholders of the STEM Action Center and stakeholders of the Workforce Development Council because, we were talking about a merger that impacted both agencies.
Sechrist was asked by the committee to describe the reality for other agencies that are set to take a look internally.
It is so hard to go through this process with all of the unknowns and be able to, maintain staff morale and living with uncertainty, both of my teams.
While the process does have a human element, the goal is to make sure taxpayer dollars are being used well. That could call for consolidation or elimination. And in the end, the committee approved 6 of those actions to bring to the full legislature. The co-chairs were clear. Votes now don't signal ultimate action.
The recommendation is to move forward. Then we'd have to draft legislation, and that may, what's in there you may end up not liking. You may have recommended it and voted one way, but then when it gets to legislation, it may be something that you couldn't support. So I don't think we're necessarily bound individually by this, but I think it's important for us as a task force to do what we're tasked with.
So at the end of that meeting, there wasn't a grand total immediately available in terms of what would these 6 actions actually amount to in terms of savings and efficiencies, Brian. However, the task force is expected to meet sometime in December. But
I misspoke there. Okay.
No, that's all right. And as we circle back, though, to our first coverage, I guess, over the summer, where we had things like Veterans Affairs, these long lists that started community conversations, you can see now that the list of 6 now is drastically different than, what we saw in those major lists. But at JFAC, just, I guess, 2 weeks ago, there was conversations that this will continue, and those listed items that were contributed from community members and lawmakers, this will continue. This DOGE task force is not just a point in time. They're planning on keeping this moving forward.
And considering the budget situation that Idaho is in right now, this list will probably expand as we get into the legislative session, just based on budget requests in general.
Absolutely, and I know that all agency heads have been giving a heads up that JFAC's not going to be a place to ask for money. It's a place to tell lawmakers how can we cut costs.
You get what you get. All right.
That's right.
Thanks, Joe.